Hello again, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my 2019 bullet journal setup video. In last week's video, I went over my plans for my 2019 journal, including general mock-ups of how I wanted each of the spreads to look. If you didn't catch that one, there's a link to that video in the cards above. For today, I'm going to be showing you the equipment that I've used and the spreads that I've set up for my next journal. Before we jump into it, just a reminder that in the description box below there's a full list of these materials, just if you wanted to check any of them out yourself. So as mentioned in my last video, for 2019 I wanted my start of journal to be in a rainbow theme. So for this we have my Tombow dual brush markers, the colours for which are listed below, as well as my Staedtler Tri Plus fine liners. Although technically there is no pink in the rainbow, I found that the pink really tied in a lot better with the washi tape I selected, so I decided to opt in for that one instead. For my black pens, I used my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens in the M and S size, and because I used a pencil before I went in with pen, I also needed an eraser, and as per usual, my trusty ruler. For 2019, the journal I've decided to go with is the Pink Scribbles That Matter in the iconic A5 version. I really loved using my Scribbles That Matter for the second half of 2018, so I wanted to continue on in another one. From last week, you'll remember that this was the plan I had for my journal. So I had the colours I wanted to use, the spreads I wanted to include, and then those little thumbnails of each of those spreads. Some changes that I've made since last week is that I also wanted to include a few more pages. So I have a health section, a notes to self page, and also a wish list. Because of that, it means that a few of these pages have been moved around to accommodate these new ones. So jumping into my new journal, the first thing we have is the inside cover. Usually I like to wait until I've had my journal a month or two before I actually go in and write down my name, just because the idea of putting any ink on this first page gives me a lot of anxiety. Given this is my 5th journal, however, I felt that it was time that I get over that a little bit and actually write my name in once I started the journal. For this I've just written down my name, my email address, and the starting date in rainbow order using those Tombow dual brush markers. Because I wanted a little bit of extra contrast between these bright colours and the stuff that was already printed in the journal, I went over this text using my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens, just to make it a little bit darker. As you can see, I also added some strips of washi tape at the top and bottom of the page. For this space here, I'm not too sure what I want to do with it yet, but I'm thinking that I might put my school timetable once school starts, or possibly some kind of motivational picture. After this we have my key and index, and I've done the same thing again by going over the text using my Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. As I know that this journal is likely only going to last me 6 months, I've written down each of the months for the first half of the year, and then put a section header for the collections that I'll have in this journal. You can see that both of these sections are quite similar to what I have in my current journal. I do, however, think the changes by doing the outlining and adding some decorative washi tape do make quite a difference. After this we have my future log, and I've kept this in the same style to what I have currently. As I talked about in my last journal, I decided to start this one in February rather than January, mostly because I don't see the point of putting January in the future log when I'm going to start using this journal in January and will already have a monthly setup. For these other months, however, because they won't already have a monthly setup when I get started, I'll need somewhere to record events that are going to happen in those months. So for this we have February through to June, and then this section is for any dates that fall outside of that range. In terms of spacing, each of these monthly columns is 8 squares across, with 1 square in between the adjacent columns. In terms of the equipment used on this page, all of the black outlining for these headers was done in the M size Pitt Artist pen, the text for the monthly calendars was using the S size Pitt Artist pen, and also my Staedtler Tri Plus fine liners, which were also used for these dividers. As can be expected, the colouring in for each of these headers was using my Tombow dual brush markers. Because I already do have some events for next year, I'm going to go and write those down now. There are of course other birthdays and events that I could add in here, but I just wanted to show you how I would migrate tasks from my current journal to this one here. After my future log, the next page we have is my goal spread. So as you can see, it's a little bit lacking at the moment, but what I've got here is it's split into 8 different categories, so social goals, health goals, goals related to leisure, finance, work, personal, my partner Vogel, and home. As I haven't really sussed out what I want my goals to be just yet, I'm not going to fill this one in until we get closer to the end of the year, which really isn't that far away at all. After my goals, we have my saving spreads. So for this one, I have the money that came into my accounts and the money that I spent, and then at the bottom here we have a section for my totals. So total money that came in, total money that went out, and overall total. For this section here, I'm going to be making a bar graph. So bars that represent the total money in and the total money out. To decide on the scale for this one, I consulted my budget from the last year and looked at the average spending that I had for each month. Given that, I've decided that each square across represents $500. So I've gone in and drawn a faint grey line to represent each thousand. So for example, if in January I spent, say, $4,000, I would go across to here, and this is where my bar would be. And I'd colour that in. If in February I then spent $5,000, I'd do the same thing again, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and make my bar there. And then a similar idea for my money that came in. So let's say in January I managed to get $4,000, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's say in February, because it was a shorter month, I only managed to get $3,000. I think this will be a kind of cool way to track my money in and money out, and I'm interested to see how my graph looks at the end of next year. For this page over here, this is going to be a log of my daily spending, so it's somewhat similar to the year in pixels that you might have seen other journalists do. For this one, I have a box for each day of the year, and then every day I'm going to go and colour in that box depending on how much I spent. So if I spent no money, then the box will be purple. If I spent under $10, it'll be blue, under 20 is green, under 30 is yellow, under 40 is orange, and any more than that is pink. So hopefully at the end of the year I'll have a lot of these colours and not so many of these colours. For this one I've decided to only limit it to spending that I didn't necessarily need to do. So things like my utility bills and my mortgage payments, those won't be included. When drawing this one out, this was actually the second page that I managed to stuff up in my setup. I wonder if you noticed the first one. So I'm not sure how well it shows up on camera, but you might notice that this line here is slightly bolder than the ones next to it. And that's because I made this one 2 centimeters too short initially, and then had to go and add in the extra boxes at the end. Thankfully I managed to figure this out before I'd put my numbers in, because that would have made for a lot of whiteout being needed. If you didn't notice it, the first place that I stuffed up was on my future log when I was doing the dates for March. So you can see this goes 18, 19, 20, 25, 22, 23. Technically I initially wrote 15 instead of 25, but I managed to change the 1 into a 2 without too much effort. As I've spoken about previously though, for small errors in my black text, I usually don't go and correct these because you end up drawing more attention to the mistake than you otherwise would have. After this one we have my to consume and wish list. For my to consume list I'm thinking about books that I want to read, TV shows and movies I want to watch, and games that I want to play. Originally I was going to section this out into those 4 different categories, but I wasn't too sure how much space I was going to need for each of them, especially considering I watch a lot more television than I do read. So instead I decided to just make this a combined list. For my wish list I've just kept this relatively straightforward and just made 2 columns with this dividing line. Again, all of the black outlining and text on these pages was done with the M-sized Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pen. After this one we have my social media spreads. So we have my YouTube video planner, my growth trackers, and then a space to jot down any ideas that I might have. For my growth tracker, I've gone and put down an initial for each month of the year, as well as a 0 at the start to say that was the number I started on for the year. For my YouTube calendar, I've gone and penciled in a few videos that I know I want to do and roughly when, but because I'm not too sure at this stage if that's the actual date I want to do them, they're going to stay in pencil until I make that decision. After these ones, we have my term planner. So I've kept the layout of my term planner the same, but instead of having it at the back of my journal as I had in the last one, I instead have that one in the front of this journal. If you wanted more information about how I set this one up and use it, I've actually done a previous video on my term planner, and there's a link to that one in the cards above. In general, however, each column represents a week of the term, and each row represents a day of the week. So we have week 1 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, week 2 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on. For the spaces that are grayed out, these are periods that I know I won't have my classes. So for instance, every period 4 on a Monday and Friday, we have an assembly, so I don't see my classes for a lesson then. In week 3, we have EOTC week, so I know for these 3 days specifically, I won't have any classes. In week 2, we have Waitangi Day, and then we also have School Athletics Day. Because this journal's only probably going to last me 6 months, I've only put down term planner spreads for the first 2 terms. After this one, we have my TOM or period tracker. So TOM here stands for time of month. As you can see, I haven't gone and numbered these boxes yet, but each long box represents 1 week. So for this one, we'll have December 31st, January 1st through 6th, 7th through 13th, and so on and so forth. At this stage, my plan is to use this top section for my period tracker, and then this bottom section for something else, but I haven't quite decided what yet. If you had any suggestions though, do let me know in the comment section below. After this, we have one of the spreads I didn't talk about in my last video, which is my health spread. In terms of the elements we have on this one, this page over here is for monthly challenges that are related to health, and this one was fully inspired by Erin of the Petite Planner. At this stage, I haven't decided what my healthy challenges are going to be, so I haven't filled them in yet, but again, if you had any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. On the left-hand side here, we have a section for weight loss, because that's one of my goals for next year. Admittedly, it has been my goal for every year since I was probably 15, but it has yet to happen. Hopefully this spread will help me stay motivated, but I guess we'll see this time next year. At this stage, I haven't decided in what increment I'm going to be tracking this, because I'm going to wait until the 1st of January to record my starting weight, and then set a goal for myself. In the bottom section of this page, we have a space for me to write down any healthy meal ideas I have, or any healthy meals that I try and quite like. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, again, if you have any suggestions for healthy meals that you quite enjoy, I'd love to hear those as well. After this one, we have my last page, which is my note to self page. I'm not sure if it's just me, but I have a tendency of trying the same things over and over again and expecting different results. This is particularly in terms of the dislike section. This may be because I forgot how bad it was last time, or I've tricked myself into thinking that I actually liked something. So I wanted a space in my journal to write down some notes for myself, to remind myself of things I do and don't like, and any other things. So an example for this is that the other day I got a Tulsi roti and I really didn't actually like it. I much more prefer Malaysian roti. However, on Wednesday, when I went to go get Tulsi with my friend, I ended up ordering the same roti again and I still didn't like it. Mostly because at the time I just had forgotten how much of a distaste for it I had. Obviously this is a food example, but for something else this could be something like what particular shade or colour you like for a certain brand of makeup, or it could be something like things to remember when you're going away. So for instance, if you were going away, checked the weather forecast and decided, you know what, I really don't need sunscreen, and then when you got there you really did, you might want to write that down as a note to self that next time you take it regardless. Before I forget, however, I am going to write down that I did not like Tulsi's roti. Hopefully this will save me next time I go to Tulsi. Despite not liking their roti, their naan bread is really good. Thank you for watching. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts, comments or feels, please do let me know in the comments below. I'm really excited about 2019 starting and I hope you guys are too. Next Sunday I'll be back with my January plan with me, and on Thursday I'll have my regular weekly planning video. Until next time, bye!